What's up, veterans? Today is a super important episode, especially if you are struggling with digestive issues, stomach pain, or unpredictable bowel habits. Okay, we're talking about irritable bowel syndrome today and the top 5 secondary conditions that you can get service connected to irritable bowel syndrome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for your service. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, share this out with a veteran that can use this information. And remember, if you do need help, reach out to us, 904-605-0431. We have helped a ton of veterans through this channel and want to continue to do so that you guys and gals are in the best position to get the benefits that you deserve. Again, I am a veteran serving veterans. So IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is a tough one. It's not just in your head, and it's not something that you can just ignore, right? It affects how your body digests food. It impacts how you absorb nutrients. It impacts even how your brain communicates with your gut. And for many veterans, especially those who served during the Gulf War era or in a toxic exposure risk area, IBS can be directly service connected or secondary or to another condition like PTSD. And check this out, even medication side effects. So if you're dealing with gut or digestive issues, check the medications that you're taking and check that against, does this lead to digestive or irritable bowel syndrome issues? Okay. But here's the key, veterans: irritable bowel syndrome rarely comes alone, and that's a game changer. It often triggers or worsens other conditions that you may or may not know about that can also be claimed as a secondary condition. Before I go any further, let's talk about connecting a secondary service connected condition. How do you secondary a service connected condition, veterans? You need a nexus, you need a clear connection, you need a link, which is through that nexus letter. You need to prove how something is caused by one of your service connected conditions. Your service connected condition must be service connected as the primary driver. You need a disability benefits questionnaire. I highly suggest that if you're going to secondary something, and make sure you are getting up to date treatment for whatever the secondary condition is that you are claiming. Okay. Very, very important. And make sure you are diagnosed for it or it is in your medical records. Okay. Very important. So you can secondary quite a few things. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video today. Okay. So I'm going to be breaking down the top 5 conditions that you could secondary to your irritable bowel syndrome, what they are. I'm going to explain how they can be connected. And again, what kind of evidence that you need to prove that. Okay. So again, let's get right into it. The first thing is IBS secondary to anxiety or mental health. Anxiety can disrupt gut function and exacerbate your irritable bowel syndrome symptoms through the gut brain axis. Veterans with service connected anxiety may experience worsened gastrointestinal issues as a result. Very, very important to understand that. Okay. It's not clear how stress, anxiety, and irritable bowel syndrome are related to or which one comes first, but many studies, veterans, show they can happen together. When a doctor talks to people with this digestive disorder, what you find is that about 60% of the irritable bowel syndrome patients will meet the criteria for one or more psychiatric disorders, veterans. Okay. And that's according to Dr. Edward Blanchard, PhD, professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany. The most common mental ailment people have with IBS is generalized anxiety disorder. Okay. Right. This professor thinks more than 60% of irritable bowel syndrome patients with a psychiatric illness have that type of anxiety. Okay, so that is very important. Another 20% have depression, and the rest have other disorders, veterans. Regardless of whether these people have irritable bowel syndrome or not, people with anxiety, maybe that's you, veterans, if you have that, if you have anxiety, you tend to worry greatly about issues such as health, career, occupation, jobs, money, relationships, etc. The anxiety can lead to other symptoms that include an upset stomach, go figure, trembling, muscle aches, insomnia, dizziness, and even irritability. There are several theories about the connection between irritable bowel syndrome veterans, stress, and anxiety. All those psychological problems like anxiety don't cause the digestive disorder. People with IBS may be more sensitive to emotional troubles. Okay. Strong emotions like anxiety, stress, depression, those can trigger chemicals in the brain that turn on pain signals, veterans, in your gut that may cause your colon to react. Stress and anxiety make the mind more aware of spasms in the colon. Irritable bowel syndrome may be triggered by the immune system, which is affected by stress. Okay. There's proof that keeping your stress under control can help you prevent or ease irritable bowel syndrome symptoms. So here's why: your gut has what you can call a brain of its own, pretty much. It's the enteric nervous system, and it's the reason you get butterflies in your stomach, if you know that feeling, whenever you are nervous. The second brain controls how you digest your food. It also constantly talks with your actual brain. This connection may help you manage your irritable bowel syndrome. Okay. So, anxiety is the number one on my list that you can claim secondary, right? Or that you can claim IBS secondary to. So, mental health, anxiety. Okay. Anxiety again can disrupt gut function, and exacerbate IBS symptoms. Okay. Number two on my list is mental health, IBS secondary to depression. Similar to anxiety, depression can affect gut health and contribute to or worsen IBS symptoms. The physiological stress associated with depression, veterans, can impact gut uh, can impact your gut, the motility, and the microbiome. Very important to understand that. Okay. I'm going to break down that a little bit. Your IBS secondary to your depression is very important to understand that in accordance with 38 Code of Federal Regulations, right? This disability that is proximately due to or aggravated by this service connected disease can be service connected. So, very, very important to understand that. And then, how does the VA rate that depression? Well, let's talk about it for a minute. Okay. They're going to rate that depression secondary to that IBS as they would for a mental health rating. Okay. What's going to be prevalent is going to be the severity of that depression, right? The worse that the depression is, the worse that the mental health is, veterans, right? The higher the rating of that mental health rating. And remember, you only get one mental health rating, and that's rated anywhere from 0, 10, 30, 50, 70, even up to 100. You can get your mental health as a secondary. Again, it all matters on frequency, severity, duration, and the severity of that depression. So, the psychological stress associated with depression can impact gut motility and the microbiome. Okay. Number three on my list is IBS secondary to PTSD. Post traumatic stress disorder is known to have physical health implications, okay, including an increased risk for gastrointestinal disorders like irritable bowel syndrome. The stress response associated with PTSD can directly influence your gut function and your health as well too. So it's very, very, very important to understand that. Again, that stress, as I was talking about, can help you out, or can really exasperate that IBS, if you will. It can really cause that more problems than need. So that's why third on my list is that PTSD. Remember, the most common mental ailment with IBS, and these things kind of couple together, is that number one, anxiety disorder. Okay. It's very important that stress causes you to worry. It all ties in together. It causes you to be stressed out. It causes you to go through things, sometimes even panic, etc. And then you can start getting sick in your stomach. Okay. So, number three on my list is irritable bowel syndrome secondary to PTSD, veterans. Number four on my list, okay, is IBS secondary to food intolerances or sensitivities. Okay. Veterans, if you are service connected, right? If you have service connected conditions that impact and affect your gastrointestinal health or your diet, that might develop or worsen your IBS due to food intolerances or sensitivities, potentially as a reaction to stress, medication, or even your dietary changes necessitated by whatever primary condition it is. So, if you have a food intolerance or sensitivity, you could claim IBS secondary to that as well too. Very, very, very important to understand that. Okay. And number 5 on my list is going to be IBS secondary to medications side effects. Okay. Certain medications, if you're taking them for other conditions, including antibiotics and painkillers, can absolutely disrupt the gut microbiome or cause side effects that mimic or exacerbate your irritable bowel syndrome symptoms. If these medications are taken for service connected conditions, the resultant IBS may be considered secondary. Important to understand that. Okay. Some medications that can potentially cause or worsen symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, right? You may be on these medications if you're listening, can be antibiotics, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So NSAIDs can be a part of that, right? The anti-inflammatory drugs can cause and impact your IBS as well. Antidepressants, if you're on any of that, check what kind of antidepressant you're on. Check that against IBS as well too. See if there's any correlation there or any studies of that impacting your IBS, right? Proton pump inhibitors, so PPIs, laxatives, right? Very important. Opioid pain medications, among others, the medication side effects you can do IBS off of, right? You're going to need a nexus letter, though. You have to make sure of that. You link that together. Make sure that you get a proper nexus letter. Make sure you get all the evidence. Make sure you veterans are complaining about this. Okay. Irritable bowel syndrome can get you a rating of up to 30%. Okay. Again, with a break at 10%. Okay. Um, I'm going to give you that diagnostic code and I'm going to put that kind of down in the chats here, but it's under diagnostic code 7319 of how irritable bowel syndrome is rated. And again, you will be eligible depending on the severity of your IBS. The rating will be determined from 10 to 30% with a break at 20. Okay. I'm putting that in here now. There you go. If you come in later, check this out. It's right there. Diagnostic code 7319. Check that out. Look into that as well. That could definitely help you. Okay. So, anxiety, depression, PTSD, food intolerances or sensitivities, and medication side effects, antibiotics, certain painkillers. You can do irritable bowel syndrome secondary. Listen, you listening, this may be what you need to get right over the hump. If you do need help with this, if you do need a nexus, if you do need a DBQ, look in the description of this live stream. If you tune in later, look in the description of the YouTube. Very, very important to understand these things that you can do. Can GERD be secondary to IBS? It's unlikely to get that service connected for GERD secondary to IBS or IBS secondary to GERD. The connection between GERD and IBS is not fully understood. So you're kind of throwing mud at a wall, veterans. Be careful with that. But they do often occur together. It's not typically stated that GERD is secondary to IBS or IBS to GERD, but rather that the coexistence of both may complicate the management and treatment of the other. Okay. The mechanisms behind their coexistence might involve shared risk factors, veterans, including dietary triggers, stress, and a hypersensitivity to internal bodily sensations. It's important to understand that the VA won't issue a separate rating for both GERD and IBS, okay? Because these conditions share similar symptoms that affect the digestive system. Awarding separate ratings for both conditions would be deemed as pyramiding. Okay. What is pyramiding? Let me break that down for you. Okay. Um, the pyramiding rule says that only one disability rating can be awarded for each symptom produced by a service connected disability. So, put another way of what pyramiding is, if separate disabilities cause, so GERD and IBS, identical symptoms, you cannot receive separate disability ratings. The legalese used in the 38 Code of Federal Regulations 4.14 states that the evaluation of the same disability under various diagnoses is to be avoided. Okay. So there's a subtle nuance here that you need to pick up in order to understand this rule. Notice that one disability rating can be awarded for each symptom, not each disability, right? But doesn't the VA award ratings for service connected disabilities? Not exactly. Sometimes technically the VA rates symptoms that are produced by service connected disabilities. Once the VA decides that your disability was caused or aggravated by your military service, they review documents such as, again, your medical records, lay statements, interdependent medical opinions, disability benefits questionnaires, and other treatment or records that you may have in order to determine how negatively your symptoms impact your life. So, again, if separate disabilities cause identical symptoms, GERD and IBS is what we're talking about now, you cannot receive separate disability ratings. I just want to be perfectly clear on that. Sometimes the VA may consider symptoms from both conditions, veterans, and assign a rating under a single gastro or GI condition, gastrointestinal condition. For example, the VA might award a 50% rating for GERD with esophageal stricture and related IBS symptoms. Very, very, very important to understand that. So, 10, 30% rating for irritable bowel syndrome with breaks at 20. Important to understand that. I hope that this video helps you guys out. I hope this live stream helps you out. Look, you may be at 92, 93%, may need this to get over the hump. It's something that you can secondary, and it's not too difficult to secondary irritable bowel syndrome, but you need the proper medical scientific literature. So the Nexus letter, you need the link if you're going to secondary something and you did not complain about it while you were on active duty. Get the right help, get what you need. It's worth it to get you the benefits that you deserve. If you need it, reach out to us. If you need a Nexus letter, DBQ, look in the description of this video. But I hope that this helps you. These are the 5 most common IBS secondary conditions and everything that you need to know about those conditions and how to get it service connected. I hope that this video helps you. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, and share this out with a veteran that can use this information. Okay. Thank you for your service. We care about you. Definitely do. And we are veterans serving veterans. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.